Another edition, the final edition,
Hey!
2023. In the pocket, all thanks to our great sponsor, Palmerbet. And I have to give this a pump up.
Hey! Woo-hoo-hoo!
Seriously, one of the greatest theme song, Spider, I reckon. Second Richmond, of course, but it is not bad, the old Collingwood theme song. And it was belting out at about 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And, mate, we were lucky enough, both of us, Spied, to be down there. One of the great grand finals ever for mine, big fella.
Yeah, look, I'm going to take my head off to, I think, the AFL and the NRL. If you've been alive, you've been lucky enough to see this weekend in sport, you will not get a better weekend. You'll be hard-pressed. Both codes ran right to the wire, massive sellouts. We know the enthusiasm between the Broncos and the Panthers going for 3 in a row, and then Collingwood, the biggest club in Australia, versus Brisbane, who are, got on the rebound and trying to win their flag for the first time in a long time. So, look, it was just the greatest weekend, just the build-up from the music to start with, the crowd, just everyone walking in so nervous. It was so close. No one knew which way it was going to go, and it lived up to all expectations. So, absolutely love it. One tip, though, for the AFL, on grand final day, do yourselves a favour and close Swan Street. Don't allow cars up and down Swan Street because they were going off. It was one of the great memories. And, I saw a hairdresser's. I drove my son down there, and there was a hairdresser's. They opened up. They weren't cutting hair. They turned it into a nightclub. It was going off.
It's great to see them, especially one of those.
Yeah.
When a big Melbourne club, wins and has a bit of success, and I look back to that 2017 Richmond, the same thing, mate. Absolutely ballistic down there, and rightly so too. And let's go through some of the highlights, obviously, on grand final day, Spot. I'll be interested to get your thoughts. I reckon one of them was Kiss. Being there live, total different kettle of fish. It was magnificent. They rocked the G, make no mistake about it. To be honest, I thought, I did say to someone that maybe, another couple of songs, but as they pointed out, they probably haven't got a couple of hits, another couple of hits. They only had the kind of the 3 real belters that they
Yeah.
So, but they were great, weren't they? And it really, even, Brady singing up there, Kazali, he's just an icon. It was unbelievable. It had kind of hairs on the back of the neck standing up, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I always believe Mike Brady should do another 2. He should be doing at least 2 songs. Everybody knows him.
Yeah.
He is the voice of the MCG come grand final day. And I love Mike Brady. He nails it. The crowd gets behind it. And Kiss did what they had to do. Kiss coming off the back of Robbie Williams last year. That's kind of a standard now. Okay, their voices aren't like they were, 30 years ago, but they are 70 years of age. They're up there rocking it out, and they've said they are going to apply techniques like never before. They absolutely blew up the MCG. It looked fantastic. Didn't sound, but everyone else was on board. So, I loved every part of that. Just right, perfectly leading in.
What about our Norm Smith medalist, mate, Bobby Hill? We go back 12 months, Spied. This time last year, he's wanting to go to the Essendon Football Club. 12 months later, he's playing at the Pies. Norm Smith medalist, turns it on grand final day. It was absolutely magnificent to watch, wasn't it?
Well, they always they always say good players step up in big games. And, someone always comes out of the blue and kicks 4 or 5. And he was able to do that. Just being able to light up the MCG, just, straight in front. Some of their goal kicking under pressure, I thought, on grand final day from both teams was absolutely remarkable. I just thought, wow, you got all the pressure in the world. It's a tight game. Normally on a home and away season, you wouldn't be backing them in, and they're nailing them. So Bobby Hill, and to take that grab, that absolute hanger one-on-one inside the 50, it was special. And it was great to see that it wasn't one of the big names. Everyone played their roles, and, not everyone has a great day, but, it's all about the team, and he just did exactly what they needed.
Yeah, what about talking about great players, mate, superstars of the game? Nick Dacos, 29 disposals, kicks the first goal of the game, mate. Some of his play, just stepping through traffic, for a 20-year-old to be doing that on the biggest stage is unbelievable, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're going to touch on the Brownlow Lords for next year, but, there's going to be a lot of hype around him coming in as well. So, it was, I think, still the ultimate moment of that was his handball to DeGoey and DeGoey goal, which was just, even in the air, mid-air, handball it out. straight to Degoe and bang, from 52 out, kicks the goal. And I think, look at Sidebottom kicked the goal from outside 50. Degoe kicked another one.
Late in the game, too. Yeah.
Big goals. And remember, the first 2 quarters, they kicked a goal after the siren to keep themselves in front. So it was just an unbelievable game in every aspect.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, mate. Coleman was enormous for the Lions. He finished up with 26. I think he had 13 in the first quarter. He had the ball on an absolute string. Joe Danaher kicked 3 goals, mate. I thought he was enormous on the big stage. There was question marks on Joe on the big stage. I think we even brought it up a couple of times. Charlie Cameron got 3. McCluggage kicked 2. He only had 1 possession in the first quarter. McCluggage finished off being their leading possession getter from the Brisbane Lions. So, they had quality across the ground as well, didn't they, at stages?
Yeah, they did. And all what really impressed me outside of Danaher kicking his 3, he got up the ground. He took a couple of really good grabs outside of fullback, outside of the kick in, and was really strong. And, Eric Hipwood just couldn't get himself into the game. And Danaher had to kind of play those 2 roles. And then Charlie Cameron, lit the stage up at certain times. And then Cam Rayner couldn't get. So they actually couldn't get all their players. And not all your players are going to play well. But normally in a grand finals, your bottom 6 who play the best, you normally go on, to win a grand final. So, well, there's a lot of twists and turns, but, I think the players we set out to see pretty much turned it on for us.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought it was a wonderful grand final. And Spot, I'm interested to get your thoughts now on where it sits in regards to grand finals. For mine, the 89 Hawthorn-Geelong grand final, I was only a young kid then, but it's the one that stands out to me. It had everything. It had Brereton getting cleaned up at the first bounce, Gary Ablett turning it on, Dipper breaking his, puncturing his lung late in the game. Just a real physical, hard contest. It had everything. I actually reckon Saturday's grand final probably runs a close second to that. What's your thoughts and what are your favourite kind of AFL grand final moments, buddy?
For me, I still believe, and I said it right at the top, you will not get a greater weekend of football. I honestly believe that. In Australia, it doesn't matter. If you like for Collingwood to be the biggest club in the country and for them to win, everything that goes around them, everything that surrounds the Collingwood club. You walk outside the MCG, you see every live site shockers. You see probably 50,000 over there when the boys got presented that night. You see the same crowd back there the next day. Yeah, we get crowds at Geelong and Hawthorn, and you will at Essendon and St Kilda if they ever make it. But you just don't get what you saw at Collingwood. And the best thing about it was, and I was in Swan Street and I looked around the crowd and there's no one fighting, no one carrying on. Everybody in absolute good spirits. They were up and about. They loved it. So for me, I think it's the greatest grand final I've been to, and I don't think you'll really be hard pressed to find a greater weekend of football.
Yeah, and the weather was absolutely perfect, wasn't it? Did you have shade? I must admit, I was lucky. I was in a nice shaded spot. Spy. Did you have shade, mate, or did you cop a little bit of sun throughout the afternoon?
Well, I was pretty happy because I found my seat and I started talking to the people in front, and then a lady come along and she said, "You're in my seat," and I was in N and I was supposed to be in M, so I was actually a stand above it. So I went to my proper seat and I sat in the shade all afternoon. So. Yeah, it was perfect. So it was perfect conditions. And like I always say, I get there grand final day at 12:30. I get right, walk straight in the gate, sit down there at 12:30, and I don't move to 5:30. That's my rule. Just sit there, watch the footy, and that's all I do.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. Absolutely love it. Now, what about the Pies? Do we think that it might be the start of a bit of a dynasty? You got the Dacos brothers who are 20 and 24. Jackie Ginnivan's 20. Hill and Quainer are both 23. Moore and Degoe are 27. The core of that side is looking pretty solid, isn't it?
Yeah, look, and I think before we get on to other things, I think one of the best things I've seen in football was even Maynard. He got booed all the way through the game. But after the game, he went down, he shook all the hands of the Brisbane Lions players and told them to stand up and said, "Mate, losers don't sit down. And today you guys aren't losers. Be proud of what you've been able to achieve." And I thought, that's a great moment in sport itself. When things like that happen, it just goes to show what kind of football club they are, what kind of, so absolutely. There's a legacy there now that I think they're going to be hard to beat over the next few years. You mentioned a few names there, and like your Geelongs and your Sydneys and your Hawthorns over a period of time, they know they'll get rid of a couple of players, but they've got the money and they've got the nous, and also they've got the brains in the top part of the footy club to say, rightio, that's our salary cap. Let's keep it on that, and then let's be able to bring in players and trade out players to suit us. Don't forget, Taylor Adams and, there's so many other great players.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Noble's another one. There's some quality players that didn't take the field on the weekend as well for the Collingwood Football Club. Hey, what about the Lions, mate? What do they need to take the next level? There's a bit of conjecture, obviously, about Zorko not getting offered a contract as yet for next year. What do you reckon they need? They weren't far away. They had a magnificent home and away season and a really good final series as well, Spide. So they don't have to tweak too much, do they?
No, they don't, but everyone's a year older, and every club gets a little bit hungrier. So, those clubs that are just below them, obviously a little bit more desire amongst them. So, look, we don't know what's happening with McInerney. They've still got enough there to play finals next year. The advantage is they play so many games at home. That's the away from home is the record. That mentally to get up from this, a 4-point loss is going to be tough. They didn't lose at the end. They lost, but they really didn't lose at the MCG. They played a great brand, even though they didn't get their proper brand going. But at times they moved and were electric and were amazing. So I just think they need more consistency out of a lot of their players. I don't think Charlie Cameron had a really consistent year. Cam Rayner didn't have a really consistent year. Lachie Neale, even though he won the Brownlow. Well, you can go through all their players, and their players really went up and down, and they weren't just consistent.
Yeah, I like it, mate. Hey, what about the Pies? And it's been a lot spoken about this over the last 2 seasons in particular, but just close games, and they're recording close games. And I think we've spoken about it, Spide. They never blow sides really out of the water. If you go back and have a look at their results all year, they never won a lot of games by 5-6 goals. They just get the job done, don't they? It's like they kind of toy with teams, give them a little bit of a sniff, and then just put the foot down.
Yeah, it's interesting because we said, it can't keep happening. I think there's so many times throughout the year they're losing at 3/4 time. So we said, hang on, they've lost for 3/4. How can they just win 1/4 and then win the game?
Yeah.
And again, on the weekend, they kicked 2 goals after siren. And it nearly, it keeps them in front, keeps them up and about going into quarter time, half time. So, look, when you say that, that is absolutely belief. That's just belief in what they do, belief in how they operate. Sydney, very similar. Sydney, when they had those massive battles against West Coast for that period of time, never believed they were out of the contest. They could be 30 points down at 3/4 time, yet they never believed they were out of it. They thought, if we kick the next one, then we can kick the next one. Let's worry about the next one before we worry about 3 or 4 down the track. So Collingwood mindset like that it's no fluke now. You can't say it's a fluke.
No, it's not. They train for it. They know how to shut games down. They know how to lock games down. It's absolutely magnificent to watch, and great, great coaching performance from McRae from mine. He's just an absolute superstar, mate. And to have the Bubs on the morning of the grand final, they named the little Bubs Maggie. Unbelievable and amazing that never got out, Spide. Like in the world that we live in, the media world that we live in, to keep that under wraps until presentation was quite phenomenal. And the other one I want to ask you about, Spider, Jackie Ginnivan going to Moonee Valley for the Moya Stakes on the Friday night. You've done some different and outlandish things over your career. Would you have done that before a Friday night grand final, AFL grand final?
Well, just on McRae, I think, as you're saying, the world we live in, unbelievable to keep that under wraps. Calling it Maggie on the day they win a premiership, that his daughter has to barrack for Magpies and will cop flack for it for the next, for the next 100 years, because when she's 10, 11 or 12, you're Maggie, you're named after the premiership. Of course you are. But as long as she gets a premiership, as long as little Maggie gets a photo in the Premiership Cup, I think, we all get those photos. She needs it. Jackie Ginnivan, look, I think one thing I've learned over the last, a little bit last year, but more so this year, was the coaches and the teams and the clubs saying, you know what, let's embrace grand final week.
Yeah.
Let's go out there and embrace it from day one. From the moment you're in a grand final, go and embrace it. Don't say no to the media. Don't go and hide yourself. If you normally go to Moonee Valley before a Saturday game, you go. If you normally play golf on a Thursday, you go. I saw Jackie Ginnivan up there, at about 12:20, okay? And on the MCG, while I was walking around warming up, he went over and signed a heap of autographs. Now, that's 2 hours before you go out.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches back in the day would have said no. You saw, in the NRL, Reece Walsh walk in with a big set of sunnies on. Now, years ago, they weren't allowed to wear sunnies at the street parade or when you rock up to a game. It is about being yourself, do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I actually didn't mind it at all.
Mate, you would absolutely thrive in this era of footy, Spide. You would be.
Oh, where was it?
Mate, honestly, you were before your time, big fella. You had all this down pat, mate. You were just 20 years too early, I reckon. Big.
I know. I try and tell them all that. I got bagged out for doing media and calling games or commentating on games when I was playing. I wasn't allowed to go and do this and that. Now, look, it's a part of the
norm,
world.
Mate. It is the norm. Hey, listen, let's have a look at the 2024 Premiership market now, all thanks to Palmerbet. So if you want some juicy odds, this is the chance and the opportunity you might have. So Collingwood are the faves at $5, Brisbane at $6.50, Melbourne $7, Carlton $8, Giants at $9, Port Adelaide at $10, Adelaide 15, Geelong 15, Sydney 15. Western Bulldogs 21, St Kilda 26, Fremantle 41, Gold Coast 41, Essendon 51, Richmond 51, Hawthorn 81, North Melbourne $251, and West Coast $251. What are the plays? What are you thinking here, Spy?
I think you're mad if you don't have a couple of bucks on GWS. They were a kick away.
Yep.
$9. GWS, absolutely. I think, the Suns are probably worth a bet for the 8.
Yeah.
As soon as that's released because of the back of Dimmer, I thought, I was at the Saints Best and Fairest only the other night, and they said, the youngest team to play, in finals, and they were the only one of 3 teams to stay inside the 8 all year. So you'd think they would improve. So at those prices, I'll be looking at that. I wouldn't be too keen at the moment. I think Carlton had a really good run. Port Adelaide had a really good run this year. Brisbane, I'd be back at Collingwood. Will make it. You'd think Collingwood, it's a matter of Collingwood and who else. And at this stage, depending on what part of the draw, and we're trying to rub that crystal ball of 11 months away. But if I had $100 right now, I'd be going straight down right on GWS.
The Giants, mate, they're nice value at $9. And even aside, I reckon, like an Adelaide, that I thought they were stiff not to play finals. They're going to improve, you would think, another kind of 10, 15, 20% next season as well, so they're probably not a bad little play, mate. Western Bulldogs, $21. They've got a squad and a list good enough, and depends what happens, obviously, in the trade season. But yeah, it's interesting. Fremantle's another side, I reckon, Spide, that's got a heap of ability as well.
Yeah, look, Fremantle, absolutely. I think the Western Bulldogs, you nailed that one because, their list is prime. Their list is a great list. The only thing is, when you got Bond, who had a cracking year, can he double it up? They've still got Tommy English and a very potent forward line. Probably need another defender if it was for mine. But, there's so many great opportunities right now. Adelaide, you've already mentioned, but, they were in the finals. And it was only the umpiring decision that called them out. So, it's going to be good, but I still believe it's very similar to what happened this year. You sit there, you can go all the way around everything you want, but the 2 best teams ended up there at the end of the year. And there's no doubt Collingwood would be one of those, just the way they play football and just the amount of players they can rely on. And they've got no major injuries. And I think the other one is GWS.
Yeah. I think everyone's kind of fallen in love with the Giants, haven't they? It's all going to come down to, I think, injuries. They couldn't afford to lose like a Toby Green for a period of time and stuff like that. But they've got a really exciting list, and they play an exciting brand of footy. And another coach coming out of course, the Damien Hardwick coaching factory spot.
Yeah, and that's going to be the interesting trade period's going to be enormous. And there's already a truckload of names thrown up. And clubs aren't like they were. We're always, kind of referring things back to the yesteryear. But nowadays, clubs get it done. Ollie Wines, Brownlow medalist, Port Adelaide. You know what? If he's not going to help us next year, absolutely an Essendon or a Gold Coast Suns could do with an Ollie Wines.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
let's do it. Let's make the trade. Like North Melbourne They want the number 1 pick. Let's do the trade. What do you want? We're doing it. And that's what clubs are starting to be like that. They used to hold fort a lot of times, but now they're like, let's get it done. You got what I want. We've got what you want. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. No, I love it, mate. And I like that they're embracing it now. And I think players embrace it too. And, it's all about opportunity and fresh starts and, and all that kind of stuff and going to clubs that are maybe in a window to Premiership and stuff.
I think you only have to look over the weekend at Collingwood. How many players they had? Markov, who was on the scrap heap, come back Premiership. Taylor Adams should have been playing as well. Who else? Tom Mitchell got him for round 42 or whatever it was, round of drink. And he, because of he's in and under him with Taylor Adams out, it was vital for that side. Yeah, absolutely vital. So there's so many great stories in players not seeing a position in one club, being able to go to another club and make it work.
Yeah, I reckon you're right. Mitchell's probably his job on Lockie Neal, to be honest, is probably one of the underrated, unheralded kind of games. Not a lot being spoken about it, but I thought he was absolutely sensational. Mate, I want to give you a bit of a wrap here too, big fella, to be honest. You've only missed out. So your big bet last week, you went the Lions to win. They lose by 4 points. Joe Danaher to kick 3+ goals and Hugh McCluggage 20+ disposals. So 2 out of 3, as they say. Bad, mate.
Yeah, it was good. I had a little bit on Joey, and I love McCluggage. I was just feeling he got off to a slow start, but Coleman carved it in the first quarter. He had everything, and then McCluggage started to get his way back into it, and kicked a couple of vital goals. But look, I truly believe that Brisbane could have done it, but still with only a minute to go, it could have gone either way.
And what was your take too, Spide? As before we wrap things up on, people, they pile on now, don't they? They pile on the umpire, the advantage play on, all that kind of stuff. There is not many decisions that are made over that game that can change the whole course of the game, isn't there? You can't pinpoint it on. I know they're critical at those points in time, but the excitement and the noise and I'm sure those players and the umpires, they would not have been hearing absolutely anything in that last kind of couple of minutes. The roar was deafening, wasn't it, big fella?
Yeah, it was. And you're right. There's so many other moments in a game of football that, that could determine a goal or not a goal and, a win or a loss. But, the umpires, I thought, did a great job. We didn't hear from the umpires pretty much all day. They did what they needed to do. They weren't the centre of attention. I thought they allowed the ball to go. And, a couple of times where, we thought it was too high, they allowed it to go on because of players ducking. So I actually thought they played a pretty fair brand of football for both teams. So, a little bit stiff. But as we say, if he'd been water the free and it was kick on an advantage, Brisbane had marked it, what happens then? It's all... then Collingwood would have blown up, and then so I thought they actually did the right thing. I thought it was they umpired the game beautifully, and they allowed a lot to go, and that's what we want. That's what we want to see in a grand final.
I was just looking, and I couldn't find it on the Palmerbet app for the future Brownlow market. What would you? I know there is no market from the team as yet from Palmerbet, but Dacos is going to be our favourite, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
He'd have to be the one that's going to be the shortest in the market. Where else are we thinking, mate? Who are some of the players? Zach Butters obviously had a magnificent year. Who else are you thinking?
Yeah, I think, there's all the, Petrarca, and you've got your Oliver, who missed most of this year as well. And then, you got your Bonts, but, for me, I think you got Errol Gordon from Sydney. He flew home. So, if I was having probably 3 bets on the Brownlow this year, Nick Dacos would be the short price favourite, no doubt about that.
You might get $5 or something, like the start of the year.
Yeah, a lot of clubs will be looking at trying to work out how they can tackle him. Errol Gordon will be good value. He's at Sydney. They'll be still very consistent and competitive this year, especially on the back of probably getting Grundy and a couple of others. And then you've got, I think, Walsh from Carlton. He had a cracking final series, midfielder, in and hard. So there's 3, and I think it's going to be that changing of the guard. As you mentioned, Zach Butters, Connor Rosie, you've got Jordan Dawson, you've got these young guys now coming through. I don't think you'll see a Neil, a Petrarca, a Bond. I think that generation now moved on. You're going to have this new young generation coming through.
I'm with you, mate. Absolutely 100% there. Hey, Spide, it has been an absolutely sensational 2023 season. Some cracking games. The final series was absolutely enormous. And the culmination, of course, of that grand final last weekend was just magnificent. We must thank the team at Palmer Bet, behind the scenes in particular, Spide, who put a hell of a lot of work and a lot of effort into this show each and every week. They are absolutely sensational. A great organisation, to be honest. They do a magnificent job. They love their sports betting in general, and they're really coming up with new and innovative little bets and stuff like that to get involved in. I'm looking forward to next year too, big fella, because I reckon they are going to take it up another notch by the sounds of things as well, which is going to be really exciting. And mate, we must thank you, big fella. Sensational season, and I'm going to be disappointed, Spide, if by the time 2024 ticks over, if you're not involved with Damien Hardwick at the Gold Coast Suns, there's going to be an absolute riot, mate, because they need to get you involved with that club up there in some way, shape, or form. Either goal kicking coach or ruck coach. We need to get up there, mate. But you've done magnificent in season 2023, buddy.
Yeah, I think I'd love to be involved back in football, absolutely. But I think we've got to look at the season that was, and we do have to thank Palmer Bet. What a great organisation. And when we think about the AFL, we had 8 million people go through the gates. Collingwood had an average crowd of 73,500 people to their games through the home and away season. You sit there and go, the first game of the season was a draw, Carlton versus Richmond. Then we saw the first ever gather round, which was fantastic. We saw Big Kerno win the Coleman, kick 9, Big Tex kick 10 on his 250th. You saw Damien Hardwick walk away from footy, coaches sacked. We loved it. Buddy Franklin copped the week in the first couple of rounds of the season. And then, the season just continued to explode into everything that we expected and everything that we love about AFL. So every week there's always another story and there's always another chapter. But we finally deserved the team that was best for the year, finally got the chocolates at the end. But to Palmer Bet and everybody who does follow our tipping and our and supports in the pocket, we absolutely do love it. We enjoy it. I know you love it. I love it. I love trying to find the multis throughout the week, trying to find out the winners, because it is always a tough situation. And sometimes you got to put yourself out there and hope for the best. But, I enjoy every minute of it. Sad that footy's gone for another 6 months. But you know what? It will come around bloody quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, Spide. Summed up sensationally well, mate. We hope you've enjoyed In the Pocket in season 2023. And hopefully, Spide, we're back in 2020.
Absolutely. Send it out with Collingwood.
Love it, big fella. Well done, buddy.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.